star shifted. A ripple tore across the black canvas of space, and, in an instant, they arrived. Out of hyperspace burst a wedge-shaped formation of Resistance warships. Two mid-sized cruisers at the rear, their hulls marked with the burn scars of past battles. At their flanks, wings of bombers fanned outward in a protective arc. And at the very tip of the spear, darting ahead like a flame racing toward dry kindling, came a formation of X-wings led by a single black-painted starfighter, Poe Dameron, Black Leader. "All squadrons," his voice crackled across the channel, calm and clear. "Tighten up, stay low and fast."
Roger, base. Red squad, blue squad, take my lead. Drop me on light speed.
The First Order installation on Ilum loomed ahead, vast, fortified, bristling with anti-ship weaponry. An ugly fusion of concrete and steel, the installation was carved into the planet's crust, its surface a sprawl of missile silos, turret rings, and armor-plated hangars. Communications arrays jutted skyward like claws. Heat shimmered from exhaust ports and repulsor pads. The planet's atmosphere, thin and icy, began to glow as the Resistance ships tore through it. Then, the alarms began. Inside the base, klaxons wailed in waves. Red lights pulsed against the walls. Officers shouted orders over the din of warning sirens. Troopers scrambled out of bunks and down halls, pulling on helmets mid-run. Command staff sprinted for consoles, calling out scans and readiness reports. Crew chiefs waved ground teams into position as gunners powered up defense turrets. Incoming vessels, multiple signatures, Resistance ships. The command center's main screen flashed to life, highlighting the cruisers and their escorts. From Poe's X-wing, the attack group fanned into position. Bombers took up a lower altitude sweep. Fighter wings curved left and right, taking formation against the massive structure that sprawled beneath them. "Black Leader to attack group," Poe said. "Target grid coordinates 44C through 50F. Punch through their flak and get to the silos." The first laser blasts lit up the sky. Turrets on the ground roared to life, spewing red and white fire into the sky. The Resistance cruisers returned fire, launching volleys of ion cannon blasts that slammed into perimeter defenses. X-wings dove and rolled, unleashing focused strafing runs across the upper ridges of the base. But even as the Resistance gained ground, something went wrong. A dull shimmer rippled across the sky ahead. Poe's instruments flared. "Hold up! Hold up!" he shouted into the comm. "The shield's still active! Repeat, the shield is up!" A second later, several torpedoes struck the invisible barrier and exploded harmlessly, the energy absorbed in a radiant burst of light. The X-wings scattered, pulling up hard as their attacks failed to break through. "Pull back! Don't waste the ordnance!" Poe called. "All wings, prepare for hyperspace jump. Target base marked. We'll come back for it. Clear the zone!" His X-wing veered up sharply, leading withdrawal. The other fighters followed suit, engines glowing hot. Bombers peeled away. The two cruisers adjusted their heading, and just as the base's heavy turrets locked on, the Resistance vanished. One by one, the ships flashed into streaks of light and disappeared. A piercing alarm blared overhead, snapping Rey to attention. It wasn't the alarm from before. This was new, sharper, more urgent. And for a moment, she froze, unsure if it meant she'd been found. But then she saw the movement. Stormtroopers rushed past the corridor ahead, their boots pounding against the steel floor, weapons drawn, not toward her, but away. Officers followed in a hurry, shouting into comms and scattering in different directions. None of them gave her position so much as a glance. Something else had drawn their attention. Something big. She didn't stop to wonder what. Blaster clutched in both hands, Rey pressed on, running now down a long corridor flanked with red-lit grating. Her breath came fast, her footsteps light. The floor rumbled slightly beneath her, either from distant engines or a structural response to whatever was going on elsewhere in the base. After several turns, her lungs burning, she ducked into a recessed alcove. It wasn't much, a shallow indentation in the wall meant for maintenance panels, but it gave her enough cover to pause, crouch, and breathe. She listened. No footsteps nearby. No voices. just the ever-present scream of the base's sirens and the low hum of energy conduits buried in the walls. She was free of her cell, but she had no map, no allies, and no plan. Her eyes scanned the corridor ahead. To her left, a long walkway, bordered on one side by a stone and steel wall, the other side open to a vast chamber that extended so far down she couldn't see the bottom. Ray stepped forward carefully, inching toward the edge of the corridor to get a better look. The space ahead was enormous, an atrium of industrial scale, carved deep into the facility. It pulsed with red ambient lights and the cold sheen of black metal. And there, across the chasm, was her target, a wide doorway at the far end of the walkway. Inside, faint lights revealed a hangar and rows of parked TIE fighters. An escape route. Maybe her only one. But there was a problem. Between her and that hangar was a narrow, exposed bridge. No railings, no cover, just a flat span suspended over a bottomless pit. At the far end, a group of stormtroopers stood chatting casually, weapons slung. They hadn't noticed her. Not yet. Ray flattened herself against the wall, thinking. There was no going back. The corridors behind her would soon fill with reinforcements or random patrols, and if the distraction that pulled them away ended, they'd be searching again. If she hesitated, her chance would vanish. She peered over the edge of the walkway. Below, the atrium plunged downward in a shaft lined with softly glowing panels, the light stretching far beneath her like the stars of a distant galaxy. But even those lights faded into shadow. It wasn't just deep, it was endless. Falling wasn't an option. Crossing the walkway wasn't much better. There was no cover, no distractions, and the guards at the end had a perfect line of sight. Still, the hangar was there. The ships were real. If she could get to one, she might be able to fly out. She wasn't sure she even knew how to fly one, but she'd figure it out. She had to. Ray swallowed hard, the weight of the blaster in her hands a stark reminder of how desperate her situation was. She edged toward the start of the bridge, heart racing, eyes locked on the troopers across the way. They still hadn't seen her. She didn't know how, or even if she could get across unseen, but her instincts told her one thing with certainty. This was it, her only shot. And she wasn't going to die in a first-order prison. The shield control room was small, tidy, quiet. It wasn't built for drama. There were no chairs for technicians, no constant monitoring teams. The instruments were designed to manage themselves, autonomous, precisely, and efficient. If anything ever failed, alerts would be sent instantly to Central Command, and a tech would be dispatched. Most days, there wasn't even a need to enter the room. A planetary shield system, after all, rarely failed. But this day would be different. Phasma stepped in first, flanked by Han Solo's blaster and the unrelenting shadow of Chewbacca behind her. Her polished armor was scratched from the Wookiee's grip, her cape half-torn and dragging, her dignity bruised, but not broken. Luke kept watch at the door. Still, her usual commanding presence had dimmed. The ache in her chest and shoulders reminded her that resistance, at least for now, was futile. She might have considered making a move if it were just Finn, but Luke Skywalker was somewhere nearby, and the Wookiee. She'd underestimated him once already. Taking her seat at the main console, Phasma hesitated. This situation made no tactical sense. The Resistance couldn't hope to cripple the First Order with so small a team. Yet here they were.
You're making a big mistake.
Do it.
Chewbacca growled, a low, guttural threat behind her. Without a word, Phasma began typing. Her fingers danced across the illuminated interface. The system resisted her inputs at first, demanding authorization, but she knew the codes. She was, after all, the commanding officer. A series of soft chimes sounded. Telltales began to blink in succession. Then a new readout blazed across the main screen in bold red text. Shields disable initiated. Finn leaned toward Han, lowering his voice. Solo, if I remember right, once the system starts dropping, we won't have much time. We have to alert Black Squadron to destroy the generator before they re-engage the shield. Han didn't shift his aim. We won't leave without her. Phasma slowly turned toward them, voice flacked. You're not finished. It takes 2 command-level codes to fully bring the shields down. Han narrowed his eyes. Convenient. She didn't respond. I've spent my life reading liars and thieves, Han said. I know when someone's bluffing. He stepped forward, pressing the barrel of his blaster tighter to her helmet. Tell me, how well can you hear with one ear? Phasma hesitated, then turned back to the console. More keys, more authorization codes, another confirmation ping. The room fell still. Then the final alert flashed across the console. Shields disabled. A hush passed through the group. It had worked. I hope you don't think this ends in victory, Phasma said, her tone venomous. My troops will storm this sector. You won't escape. Whatever you're planning, it won't matter. Finn didn't blink. I was told nobody escapes the core. That loyalty was absolute. That I was going to die on Jakku, alone and forgotten. He stepped back, lowering his blaster just slightly. Yet here I am. And there you are. Han gave her a long look. So, what do we do with her? Finn glanced down at her armored form. We can't let her call for help. Han thought for a moment, then smirked.
Is there a garbage chute? Trash compactor.
Finn frowned. What? Han shrugged. Let's just say I've got experience. Finn managed a half smile. Actually.
Yeah, there is.
Behind them, the screen still blinked. The shields were down. Time was running out.
General, their shields are down.
Thank the Maker!
Han did it. Send them in.
Give Poe full authorization for attack.
Black Leader, go to sunlight.
The stars stretched and snapped as the Resistance battle group dropped out of hyperspace. X-wings, bombers, and 2 cruisers emerging in tight formation over Ilum. Inside the cockpit of his black and orange X-wing, Poe Dameron scanned the tactical readouts. The enemy base's shields were gone. This is Black Leader, he said into the comm. The shield is down. I repeat, the shield is down. All units, converge on the generator. Focus all firepower. Copy, Black Leader, came Snap Wexley's voice. His fighter banked hard, falling in line behind Poe. The fleet moved as one. Resistance bombers dropped into attack runs, forming up behind Poe's lead. The cruisers angled downward, opening up with a thunderous barrage from their forward batteries. Blue and red bolts filled the sky, lighting up the ice-covered surface of Ilum. Turbolaser impacts struck the generator compound in rapid succession, carving through armor, shielding, and reinforced plating. Fighters swarmed past flak cannons and laser emplacements, dodging return fire as they hammered the target with torpedoes and ion blasts. Then it happened. One final volley struck true, and a thunderous blast erupted across the landscape. The generator ignited in a bloom of flame and metal, sending debris arcing into the air. Poe pulled up through the rising fire. Direct hit, he confirmed, watching the glow fade behind him. That's one less weapon the First Order can use. The mission wasn't over yet, but they'd landed the first real blow. Sir, the officer said, hesitating. The tech team reports there's damage to the shield control system. General Hux narrowed his eyes. How much damage? There was a pause, too long. The officer swallowed hard. Severe, sir. 90% operational loss. The system was hit. Badly. Blaster fire. It's almost completely offline. Hux didn't flinch. Bypass it. Redirect all shield controls to Central Command. Where redundancy doesn't exist, reassign now. Yes, sir.
The officer turned and began working furiously at the console. The tension in the room thickened. "Status?" Hux barked. "Not yet, sir," the officer replied, still typing. "We have to sever override pathways from the damaged center first. If we don't, they could cancel our reroute." Hux's voice dropped into a growl. "Then do it. In the name of the order, hurry." "I'm trying, sir. Just another moment." Before he could finish, the entire command room shook. A deep, echoing boom rolled through the structure. Consoles flickered. Hux grabbed a railing to steady himself. An alert flared red. "Report!" he snapped. The officer's voice came shakily. "Sir, the shield generator is gone. We're completely exposed." Hux's face twisted in fury. "Get those ties in the air, now!"
Snow whipped around the battered frame of the Millennium Falcon, its hull half submerged in the soft white drifts that blanketed Ilum's icy surface. The crash had gouged a long trench into the landscape, broken trees and scorched earth marking the chaotic descent. Scorch marks streaked along her flanks, and the forward ramp hung slightly ajar, steam still venting from systems that hadn't quite finished shutting down. Flanking the grounded vessel were 2 TIE fighters and a heavy troop transport. First-order boots had been on the ground for minutes now, moving with calculated caution as they surrounded the iconic freighter. Stormtroopers with scanning equipment swept their gear over the Falcon's surface, checking for energy spikes, thermal residue, and most importantly, traps. This was not just any freighter. They all knew it. Several troopers had already entered through the ramp and moved carefully through the dark corridors inside, blasters drawn. The interior lights flickered dimly, barely functioning after the rough landing. It felt too quiet. Eventually, the lead non-commissioned officer stepped outside and spoke into his comm. "Transport command. Interior is secure. No one aboard. No explosives. No traps found." The words had barely left his mouth when the air seemed to shift. A presence. The trooper turned sharply and instinctively straightened as a tall black figure strode across the snow toward the Falcon, cloak rippling in the wind. "Sir!" Kylo Ren said nothing. He didn't even glance at the trooper as he passed, heavy boots crunching in the snow. His mask glinted beneath the overcast sky, eyes locked on the ship as if it were a specter from his past, and in a way, it was. He stepped up into the Falcon's ramp, each footfall echoing off the metal. Inside, the corridors were narrow and dim, cluttered with gear and stripped cables. His breathing was the only sound now. He turned a corner, slowly, deliberately, passing the familiar doorway into the cockpit. He stood there for a moment, the pilot's chair, the consoles, the worn levers. Nothing had changed. Ren stepped forward and sat in the chair. He didn't know why. Perhaps some part of him needed to. His hand grazed the controls, but he didn't activate them. Instead, he stared out the viewport toward nothing. Something was missing. Or maybe something was stirring. Buried memories, unfinished conversations, shadows of voices he could never silence. His fingers tensed. There was no logic to it, but he felt the presence of his father here, in this seat, in this ship. His thoughts spiraled. He wasn't sure what he was hoping to find, a trace of something lost, a piece of himself. But then, everything changed. The air trembled. A low, distant thunder rolled through the ground, faint at first, then sharper, louder. A vibration built beneath his feet. Kylo Ren stood. He stepped out of the cockpit and down the ramp, just as the sky erupted. From above, the clouds tore open. Resistance fighters, X-wings in tight formation, burst through the atmosphere in brilliant streaks, followed by heavy bombers and escort squadrons. Their engines screamed as they dove toward the horizon, engines blazing. They were headed straight for it, the massive hexagonal containment structure on the far side of the base, the heart of the First Order's operation. Ren's eyes narrowed. The resistance had returned, and this time they weren't sneaking in. They were striking with everything they had. Behind him, the Falcon groaned softly in the wind. Before him, the sky burned with fire. "Almost in range," Poe shouted as he pitched his X-wing into a steep dive, the snowy terrain of Ilum rushing up beneath him. This was it, the mission that couldn't fail.
The Resistance wasn't here to harass the First Order. They were here to end something. The armory had to be destroyed, fully, completely, and without mercy. "Hit it dead center," Poe ordered over the comm. "As many runs as it takes, light it up!" He opened fire, unleashing the full force of his ship's weapons. A split second later, Snap Wexley's X-Wing joined in, peppering the facility with pinpoint blasts. 9 Num, flying just behind them, added his own relentless barrage. The concentrated assault lit up the sky. Missiles streaked through the air. The top of the armory erupted in a cascade of fire and debris, sending columns of smoke billowing upward. Inside the base, alarms screamed. Lights strobed red. The entire installation shuddered as explosions tore through the building. Pilots in black flight suits sprinted for their TIE fighters. Officers shouted into comms, coordinating a response. "Scramble all squadrons! Get every fighter in the air, now!" But before the First Order could fully respond, the Resistance fighters veered upward, pulled into formation, and vanished. One by one, they leapt into hyperspace, leaving behind only burning wreckage and a shaken enemy. The attack had come like lightning, and now it was gone.
Chewbacca knelt down, unzipping the heavy duffel he'd carried since their landing. Inside were compact but deadly explosives, enough to crack open fortified blast doors, though in quarters this tight, the Wookiee clearly wasn't thrilled to use them. He began carefully removing the charges, setting them in a row with methodical precision. Finn stood nearby, outlining the plan with growing urgency. Luke, a quiet presence in the background, had his eyes closed. He breathed deeply, calmly, as if listening to something no one else could hear. A faint smile touched his face. "We'll use the charges to take out the blast door," Finn said, gesturing toward the corridor ahead. "The prisoner cells are just down that way. It's usually heavily guarded, especially if anyone important is inside. I'll go in first, draw their fire." Han looked him over with a skeptical frown. "You sure you're ready for that?" Finn hesitated, but only for a second. "No," he admitted, "but this is my mission. I'm the one who dragged us into this. Finding Rey, it's on me." There was a weight behind his voice that made Han's brows lift. For a moment, the old smuggler saw something in the ex-stormtrooper's eyes. Conviction, and maybe even leadership. "I'll find her," Finn continued, "and bring her back." Han nodded, slowly convinced. "There's a footbridge between here and the hangar," Finn added. "We'll be chased. It's just a matter of when. If we plant charges there too, we can drop it behind us after we cross. It won't stop them entirely, but it'll slow them down. And from there, if I'm right, there's an access tunnel that leads straight into the main hangar." His jaw tightened. I hope she's still alive." "She is," Luke said calmly, opening his eyes and glancing toward Han. And then Han noticed movement. Squinting through the dim corridor, he broke into a grin. "Something tells me you're right." There, climbing up a maintenance shaft like it was second nature, was Rey. Disheveled, sweating, and gripping a blaster rifle, she moved with silent determination. She hadn't seen them yet. Her eyes were scanning, her weapon ready. A heartbeat later, she locked eyes with Finn, and her breath caught. Chewbacca groaned with heartfelt relief at not having to blast a door open, and perhaps more than he'd admit, at seeing the girl alive. Lowering her weapon, Rey leapt the last meter and ran straight for Finn. Without words, she threw her arms around him. He caught her with equal force, holding her like something precious he thought he'd lost. Neither of them wanted to let go.